Thank you all for being here. We know it's a little bit of an odd night. We typically will do these work sessions before regular board meetings. We do have a regular board meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, but we just decided to have a separate night to discuss these important topics this evening. So again, thank you for being here, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Phillips.
Okay. The first item on our agenda, we have some students that we are pleased to have with us this evening who are going to be sharing something that we find to be one of the important elements of what we're doing as we talk about the technology and assessing students and the engagement of work and the level that we want. We have pulled together, I haven't, but Jan has pulled together a team of students to share with you this evening digital portfolios and what that means to the instruction and assessment of student learning that is going on in our classrooms. And we're thrilled that they were willing to be here this evening.
I just want to start first by letting everybody know that the teamwork that's taken to do this has been instrumental on my instructional technology specialist. They have come together and they've really done a really good job on developing these digital portfolios. When we first started it at the beginning of the year, we implemented it with second, 5th, 6th, and 9th grade. However, as we opened it up to the schools, we had many other classes that wanted to join. So we really have it a K through 12 as far as the instruction that's going on with these digital portfolios. One thing that we've also done with it is to make the children aware, the students are aware of digital citizenship and what they should and should not do as far as what they're putting out on their digital portfolios. We found that the digital portfolio itself, it's a time for the students to have a collection of their personal best. In other words, they're creating a story of their development and the artifacts of their accomplishments, and that's shareable for everybody. As of right now, all of these are not published. Our goal is that by the time our students, we've started in kindergarten through the 12th grade, by the time they leave Vestavia High School, we want them to go out and share the best. And that means whether it is with a college, whether it's universities, or whether it's even a job opportunity, we want to show that Vestavia Hills can bring forth the best out of their students. So tonight, I have a lot of students that their teachers now are using this as a platform. In other words, they're presenting their work through their digital portfolios. Tonight we're going to showcase some of these portfolios, and in place of me sharing them, I've decided that I've asked some of the students to come and share them with you. We're going to go through and do them very quickly for you so that you just have a glimpse of what it is that our students, and I want you to also remember that when I'm showing these, I have a range from a high school student, I have 2 middle school students, one at the elementary at Liberty Park and one at Cahaba Heights. So I'm going to introduce them first, and then we're going to take turns sharing them. From the high school, I have Marjorie Hay. From Liberty Park Middle, it's going to be Freddie Nelson. From Pizitz Middle, it'll be Grace Watson. From Liberty Park Elementary, it's Christiana Belcher. From Cahaba Heights, it's Walker Brown. And also with Walker, his teacher, Carmen Sullivan, is here that she's going to kind of share as Walker gets up and talks to you. And then I also have a parent that's going to come in, and if you have any questions at the end, and that's Brooke Brown, because Walker belongs to Brooke. And so I want you to be able to kind of get a glimpse of what it is the parent sees, what the teacher sees, and also what your kids are doing, because it is amazing what has taken place in the Vestavia Hills City School System since we started this in August. So let's start first with, we'll go with Freddie Nelson first. So Freddie, you come on up real quick. You can come up here. He'll run for you.
Thank you for being here, Freddie.
This is my site, and then I have my home page, and then I chose the code God, family, and others, and then the About Me tab is right there. And then that's just like represent, and then I got things I love in like towards the first paragraph, and then things that I like in the second paragraph, and then next one is academics. And then, which my favorite subject is math, and I enjoy all of the subjects, but math has always been to me right there. And then hobbies and things. And then that's just talking about my love of fishing and boats and the water. And then that's my biggest fish I've ever caught, which got me into fishing in the ocean and stuff like that. And then in the more tab right there is my accomplishments and stuff. And then I was here a few months ago for winning the poster contest. It's been on a roll sometimes, a lot of time. And then and then I also get trophies for sports and stuff like that. Thank you.
And Brady is the 6th grader out at Liberty Park Middle. The next one is going to be will be Grace Watson, and she's a 6th grader at the Zitzville.
Thanks for being here, Grace.
So this is my home page, and on the front I just have a few of my, that's one of my kind of just mantras. It has a little blurb for just what my site is about and my social media. There are links to my social media home pages. So when I'm applying to colleges or jobs, I can look at those. And then that's also another one of my little mantras. And
Can you read that, Grace?
it says, when life gives you lemons.
Sorry.
When life gives you lemons, give thanks for the gifts that life gave you. And so just like accept the challenges that life throws at you. This is my just kind of about me, about my site, kind of just a few things kind of leading into the other pages of my site. And I'm still gonna wait to fill in a few of these pages because obviously a lot is gonna change before I go to college, and so I'm gonna fill those in as I go along. That's just my favorite things page, interests and hobbies, those kind of things. I just started out with a picture and a little quote. And that's actually a picture I took at a botanical gardens in Nashville. And I said, for ideas for the future, there's always room for improvement. That's a page where I'm going to put things that I want to do in the future, where I want to go from here, what kind of job I want to have. And then my contact page shows, instead of me putting out my contact information to the world, they can give me their name and their email and any questions they have so that I can answer them without giving everybody my information.
Okay, the next one is from Liberty Park Elementary, and it's Christiana Belcher, and she's a 5th grader.
I did this picture on a plane going to Maryland because every year we go to Annapolis, Maryland, to visit my grandma, and then we go to wherever it is, Philadelphia, Annapolis, Maryland, or Baltimore, Maryland, or New York, and we'd watch it. And I just did a little quote that is, there's nowhere that you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. On this page I put a picture of my dogs, and I wrote about my family and me and my friends. And I've got pictures of my brothers and dads when we get all dressed up and we do Nerf gun wars. There's a picture of the top left. There's a picture of me and my friends at the Army-Navy game. And my mom is a big runner. She's run, she's run 11 marathons in the last 8 years. And she's planning to run one in February. And that was her. The bottom left is the picture of her at her most recent marathon, the New York Marathon. So. On the academics page, I put just a couple of things I've built in GRC. And if you scroll down, it goes, the pictures go in towards each other, and it tells you like about the things that I built and achieved. And then I have my interests and hobbies. I play flag football, and the first time I played, I was the most penalized person in the league. And I had got 2001 play for tackling the guy and throwing him another 5 yards. And I like taking pictures and looking at them. I went to Camp McDowell one time, and my friend's mom took pictures, and she printed them out for me, and I'm just like looking at them all the time. So, yeah.
Okay, the next one's going to be Walker Brown, and his teacher is Carmen Sullivan, and so we're going to pull his up. His looks totally different because they use something called Seesaw, where all the other students have been using Weebly. We're letting our students really from the 5th grade up make a choice of what website they choose to do, whether it's Google Sites or Weebly or Wix. But Walker's in a little different situation because he's a 2nd grader, and so he's going to share what he's doing.
This is me, and this is when it was October, and I'm drawing about. It says, "Presently you're walking down a spooky path, and you see a witch. What do you do?" And I said.
Read that, Ty.
I will fight the witch with a broom.
Walker, if it's hard for you to see, you do not have to stand behind the lectern. You can come up some if you want to, if that makes you more comfortable.
And then this is our habitats, and I choose to take the desert, and then you had the labels, everything I didn't finish, but I labeled the cactus, and then, yeah. And then this is where we're doing rocks and water, and we're putting rocks.
Guys, I think these two look like brothers because they both have black, and they both look like they have crystals in them.
And they're both very bumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think I think a few of them are maybe weathered.
And this one, yeah, and this one right here, it seems like it's the yellow one. It seems like it's getting more yellow.
Is that
And then this is my vocabulary words in science, and a geologist is someone who looks at rocks and tries to discover what kind of rock it is. And then on this one, I'm doing a number line. And I started with 64 because it's the biggest number, and then today I'm gonna do open number line. So I'm gonna get my so I'm not gonna start with 25 since it's a smaller number than 64. So I'm gonna start with 64.
Some more strategies. Using his base 10 box. Do you remember that strategy?
You want to talk about it?
Will you just explain
Yeah.
real quick about kind of how you run your class?
So the great thing about for us with the younger kids is that everything they put on their site, I have to approve. I have to approve the parents who connect to their site, and I have to approve their comments that they post. So you'll see comments come on here, but not everybody can post. It has to be approved through me. And then I just tell the kids to put on anything they're proud of. I've seen it be a big motivator for my students because they're like, oh, I want to put this on my seesaw. My parents are going to think this is awesome. So it's helped with that. And a lot of the things that we do in the school these days, especially with science, they're hands-on. They aren't worksheets that come home. Math, a lot of number talks, which is the oral conversations. And so a lot of times parents don't see as much coming home. And so this has been a great avenue for me, communication-wise for the parents. And how powerful is that to see him, if you watch the whole thing, using vocab words like decomposing, and just to understand and see what they're actually doing in school that they may not do for home. So it's been great for not only the communication part for us, but motivation for the kids. They're always excited to get on it. Anything else?
Okay, I have one more left, and she just needs to log in really quickly. But I just wanted to give you all just a real quick overview of what it is that we're doing in our district. I'm very proud. We went to a regional meeting around all the Over Mountain schools the other day, and you know, I was proud to sit there with my ITS and say, because the other schools are not doing this yet. And so that made us feel really good that we're on the edge of at least having our students implement this and being, they take pride in it. Our goal is to do it for kindergarten through the 12th grade, and that is where we're headed. Next year, we're going to continue on this year, adding more classes. We've got more high school involved. The same with our secondary, our elementary schools, and so we want to continue with this, hopefully that they will take pride in what they do, so when they leave Vestavia High School, they take this with them. One thing that you saw tonight, everything is not published, and that's why it was all a workable area that we was having to click on. So that way when it's published, it will be just like a regular website that you would see at any time. Okay, the last one I have is going to be Marjorie Hay, and she's from the high school. She is a junior, right, Marjorie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and she's going to finish up tonight as far as our digital portfolios.
All right. I'm going to stand here too. It's kind of hard to see. All right, so this is just the homepage for my digital portfolio. And I guess I'll just talk about, I've really enjoyed making my digital portfolio. For me, it's kind of been sort of a way of self-expression, almost. Like, even with just the picture, I know it looks very just like clean and classic, but I like that. So I just try and keep it very basic and just kind of like professional. So actually there is a thought behind this picture that's behind the digital portfolio. It may just look like a theater, but I chose this picture because of the uses that theaters can be used for. So mainly for music, like I'm involved in the band. I really love music. It's a big part of my life. So obviously when you go watch a concert, you're going to be watching it in a theater. And then also colleges with really large classes hold their classes in theaters. So kind of academic and music kind of thought back there. And then if you click menu, go to the About Me. So this is just the About Me tab, just kind of like a quick little blurb. I did not take that picture up there, but basically it just says, welcome to my digital portfolio, and I'm currently a junior at Vestavia High School, and I am a drum major for the Vestavia Hills marching band. and I'm looking to major in nursing, and I'm still like searching for the perfect college fit for me. Since I'm a junior, I'm looking to market myself to colleges, so I thought that would be a good thing to kind of fit there, so if colleges come to my site and see what I'm interested in and see what programs they might have for me. And then next, academics. So first up here, just the career-oriented, college-focused. Those are two things, being career-oriented and college-focused. Those are two things that I think make me career-focused, so that's why I kind of had like all of this stuff. And then down here, in no particular order, I put 3 things that I'm involved in with the school. So the first is Science Olympiad. So this has been really helpful as I've been looking at different careers and things, helping me see what I'm interested in. In Science Olympiad, we do a lot of things like we compete in academic competitions. I love the engineering events, so at one point I was thinking of going into engineering, and so that was a really cool way for me to see if that was a fit for me, because we got to sit down and actually solve problems. Like I built a plane last year, we did a Rube Goldberg project, which is basically just a bunch of fancy series of events, so we had to make that work out. So I've been with our team since the first year it was created at our school, and we went to we just placed at regional the first year, which was pretty cool since it was our first year competing. The second year we went to state, and I actually placed in protein modeling, which was pretty interesting. So the second thing I have is career prep. It's actually one of our required courses at the high school, but I thought it was something really good to put on there because it really helped give me a basic knowledge of like the business world and like just what you need to make yourself competitive in the job market. It taught me many skills that I need there, and I also got some certifications in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So I'm going to work and try and find, they sent you these little like digital badges, so I'm going to try and put those on there so they can kind of be displayed, so you kind of have proof for it. And then lastly, I have Capella, which is the class I've been currently doing this digital portfolio in. And this class has been super helpful for me. I went into this class not really knowing what I wanted to do. I had so much stuff that like was a possibility for me, and I was having a really hard time of narrowing things down to really figure out what fits for my interests and like the lifestyle that I might want in the future and just things of that sort. So this class has really helped give me the tools to really narrow down my job search and now narrow down to nursing. So, you know, it really helps because it gives you a lot of like, these quizzes, and those are super cool because you kind of get to see different parts of your personality that you might not see otherwise if you're just, you know, looking at yourself. It really helps you like dig in and stuff. So that's been super helpful. So, yeah, my digital portfolio.
And the parents that came from Vestavia, from the whole district. This was huge that you all gave up your time to come and share with everybody else. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Jan, can I ask you one quick question? Marjorie raised a great point about the college impact. I could see that these digital portfolios really setting you and other kids that have these in high school when they're in the application process, setting them apart when they're competing against other kids from other schools, I would think. I don't know if Oliver Aaron can speak to that, but at some point, but just that difference maker that you would have as having a digital portfolio that admissions office could look to, as other kids may not.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's why we're actually doing these in Capella, because it's a very like college-focused class. So the main reason we were starting to do this was kind of to give a page to display yourself for colleges specifically, because digital portfolios, they kind of show more than a resume might, or just an application. Right. It kind of gives a full view of the person.
Exactly.
So,
I think it's
There's
great.
a lot of relevance to this.
And we're also doing them in the English classes at the high school are doing them. We have some history classes that are taking it on now to also do it. In our research with the ITS, before we even started this, there are over 100 universities and colleges right now that they want to see a digital portfolio rather than one worrying about what an ACT score was. So they're taking more of avenue of looking at that. So I think that plays a huge role on us getting our students really ready so that they have both, the ACT and the digital portfolio.
Right. And you say that we're the only over-the-mountain school doing this, so we're ahead of Mountain Brook with this. Is that right?
This is filmed.
Are we going to look at
marker down?
Are we going to look at Mark's MySpace page? I know he's real proud of that. So. You keep it updated all the time.
Thank you all.
It's amazing to me that all the ages you saw and what they can produce, because this is what they chose to be their best. The pictures they put on there, the work they put on there, it was them. We were just there heading it up saying, these are the 4 tabs we want you to do, and then you go to do what you want to do with it.
And seriously, as a resident tech guy up here, I mean, I love the fact that this like demystifies a lot of the tech stuff, and that they can use it and realize it's, you know, the gap between kind of actual usage isn't as big as they think it is. And so when you begin to do this kind of stuff, then the next thing and the next thing isn't that far, you know, removed from it. So I think that's awesome. That's great.
Can I say one
thing
real quick? I'm Jennifer Cassidy, one of the tech specialists, and the beauty of that has been also that some of the teachers then have wanted to incorporate this into projects. It's an option for kids, or a way that they can turn around either research information or just turn around what they know in their classes. We have a class over at Liberty Park Middle that I worked with today that they're creating a page on their digital portfolio for Newberry authors. So, you know, with that knowledge, then they can turn around and do lots of different work.
Right. And the feedback piece is not to be under noticed either. It's to give that kind of feedback from many people who have access to the students' portfolio is key too, and their learning and their desire to want to learn more and to share more and to be able to evaluate their own learning is a big piece of this as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you all
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Sure. So when colleges see your portfolio, do they see the important history or do they see comment?
They will see what the students take when they leave as a senior. Now they can have anything they want on it throughout the years, like we're teaching them to hold everything in their Google Drive so that everything is there, and then they're able to pick out whatever they want as their final product to go on to a college or a university. Yes, ma'am, especially like if they're an artist and they've drawn a picture in 2nd grade that was really something, because we have a lot of kids that are really great artists, and they can continue to keep that all the way through, and at the end they can create whatever they want with their portfolio when they're seniors at the high school.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. You all do not have to stay. You're welcome to, but you do not have to. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
All right. I'm going to turn it over. Thank you all so much. I'm going to turn it over to Jay Marie and team to talk about the middle school alignment.
In April of 2014, Vestavia Health City Schools underwent accreditation from the Advanced Ed group. And during that time, they presented us at the end of their visit with 2 required actions. One of their required actions was for us to work on alignment in our middle schools. Prior to that, there had not been a conversation about setting an expectation for common experiences to the 2 middle schools, knowing that we have one feeder pattern where every child in Vestavia Hills ends up at Vestavia Hills High School. At that point, we spent a lot of time taking a close and deep look at the work at our two middle schools. We looked at everything from test scores to personnel to the opportunities that students had at both places. Immediately following the advanced ed visit, we began to assemble groups of middle school teachers along with the administration, identifying areas that we knew that we could address immediately. One of the areas that we knew that we could address immediately were the common experiences across the two schools. So beginning that summer and into early fall, we began our work on the middle school alignment. So today is an output of work over several years. So as you will see as we work through our presentation tonight, the phrase "we're all in this together" is very important to our two schools. In fact, this is actually a sign that we had made to represent both schools as some professional development together. This is actually a phrase that came from the administration to find a way to create cohesion across the two middle schools. In fact, in this very room, the first time we brought teachers together, I had teachers from both schools say to us, when I was Director of Curriculum Instruction along with Brooke, said, "We've never been asked to share our practice. We've never been asked to create common experiences, and we're so excited about working with our sister school." So thus began the work of creating a place that says we're all in this together. This is actually a timeline that represents the beginning of what I just spoke of. So in April of 2014, the Advanced Ed Accreditation group came, and one of their required actions was to do, as I just said, to create alignment across the middle schools. So from 2014 of June till the present, through curriculum meetings, through professional learning, through associations with groups like the Alabama Best Practices Center, we have consistently brought the two schools together with the expectation that students' experiences should be more similar than they are different. We started with some easy things like creating common reading lists, creating common writing assignments. We even took a very close look at the equipment and the materials that were available at both places. And we spent an enormous amount of energy, both physical, human, and financial, to create opportunities for both at both schools. One example would be making sure that the science labs were equipped with similar, if not identical, lab equipment. So what we uncovered through this process was that there was quite a difference in many different ways, good, bad, or otherwise, existing in both places. So the work of the alignment really began with a group of teachers who were determined to and committed to the outcome that all students are feeding into one high school and they should have common experiences. So that is an ongoing process. So even when I say present, I am really speaking of within the last few weeks, we have continued to have teachers come together to write common assessments, to write learning targets, to be sure that we are doing everything we can to align curricular experiences. Early on in the fall, as Sheila began to speak to the facilities and the possibilities there, she actually referenced in many of her slides some of the work that has previously been done. Along the way, as we had those conversations, it became clear to us that we had some more work to do. We feel like we've made a lot of progress in the alignment, but clearly that was not the voice that we were hearing in some of our meetings with parents. So we began to take a closer look at what wasn't happening that was aligned. As a result, we were charged with taking what we know about our schools and asking ourselves, what had we missed? So on November the 9th, a group of approximately 35 teachers, administrators, counselors, special education teachers, coaches came together with that question posed. What are we not doing for students at both places? What are we missing? What are we doing well? What could we do better? And so, in November, we sat down and that was our charge. We were actually in this room and I actually gave everyone 2 sets of cards of different colors. And I said, on one card, I want you to write down all the things you think we do well at our 2 middle schools. And on the other card, I'd like for you to write down all the things that you think that we could do better. And as a result, we came up with a fairly strong and common list across both places. And as we move through our presentation tonight, those will be reflected for you to be able to see what were those common themes that came out. Interestingly enough, we did not have conversation about this before we asked people to go and make some list for us. And as a result, we can see it was a very strong answer to the question that we are called to do some things that we have not necessarily done an excellent job of. So from that point, we brought those groups together, and after we sat down and started looking at it, we came up with some opportunities that we know that we needed to align. And as you'll see, as we'll go back to this, I'll go ahead and show you this next slide, because I know I'm about to hand this off to the two other people who are here tonight to help actually do the presentation. We know that there were some aligned opportunities that we needed to address based on some obvious things, such as a gifted English course at the 7th grade at both schools, advanced English in 8th grade, opportunities for kids to do a variety of languages, as well as some other opportunities like coding, robotics, debate, etc. So we knew that there were some things that we needed to work on, and we have found a way through our presentation we'll show you to give students opportunities to explore a lot of different options. Tonight, Casey Pierce, the principal at Liberty Park Middle, is here, and Roger Dobnikar, the assistant principal. Andy Carpenter, assistant principal at Pizitz. Meredith Hanson is actually traveling back with a group of students. She's been with for over a week with one of our programs. She cannot be here tonight, but I can assure you that Meredith has been part of this conversation along the way, as well as lots and lots and lots of teachers. We have looked at survey data. We have looked at student survey data. We have had conversations all along this process to be sure that as many voices that could be represented in what we're going to share with you tonight as our alignment report are incorporated in what we're about to show you. So I've actually, because this was work, I'm just the point person to kick us off tonight. This is not work I did by myself. This is not work that any of us did alone. It was built on the backs of about 5 or 6 people who actually sat down and started really trying to make some big ideas, put feet underneath them, and make them walk. And that was the challenge that we left on that November day, was we were convened as an alignment focus group, and as a result, you're going to see that one of our reports tonight will include a proposed schedule. And we will talk about how that was never our intent when we sat down to do the work, but it was an outcome of a way to create alignment. So I know I've kind of done the overview, and some of the details and questions that you have, I believe, will be answered with Roger and Andy's presentation of this as well. And when we finish, I'm sure you'll have questions, but you do have in front of you the PowerPoint that we are showing. So I'm going to hand this off to Andy.
You can do the clicker. You get handed a clicker that you never used before. Exactly. So this is going to be an advantage. Where are we going to stand?
You can't go behind the podium. First of all, as January said, we're just representing a massive amount of people who did a lot of work to get to this point where we are today. We are proud to get to represent our schools for this purpose. Again, it's not us, it's not Jay Marie, it is a vast amount of people who put all this together that got us to this point, and we want to thank all of them and the parent input that we received as we went along the way, and as Dr. Phillips did her presentation to get us to this point.
One of the great things about having been in Vestavia for a long time is seeing the transitions over the years, and knowing 13 years ago when I got here and 20 years ago when Roger got here, it was a great place. You guys know this, you've been here. It's a great place for kids. It's been a great place for kids. One of the great things about us, and I don't mean us, me, Roger, I mean us, our community, is that great's not enough. Great today is not good enough. Tomorrow, we need to be better than we were today. We talk to our kids about that all the time. So we need to hold ourselves to that same standard. That's kind of where we started here. As we brought our teachers in, we were in here, there were 35 or so teachers, administrators, and we just talked through. We talked through what was important. We talked about what types of things great middle schools do, what we wanted our kids to be able to do. And that's how we arrived at this set of outcomes that are on the board. But if you'll notice, there are 4 of them, or I think 4 of them that are starred, maybe 5. 5 of them that are starred. And those are the ones that kept coming back. We broke into smaller groups out of our 35. I think there were 6 or 7, and of those, the 5 were the common themes that were in almost every single group. Increase elective offerings. Embed professional development during the day. Provide PLC time, professional learning communities. Provide that time during the day for teachers to work together, to plan with each other, to have great experiences for kids. The next is build in systematic intervention time. This is really, really important because you can't, if you identify a need for a student, you can't just say, we've got to find time to help them. There has to be that time built into your schedule, whether it's through the way you set up your schedule, the way you manage your schedule. You've got to have a time during the day where you can say, this child needs help with this. It'd be malpractice for us not to help that kid during the school day when we have our hands right there with them. And last is continuing the rotating schedule. That's something that we've done at Pizitz as long as I've been there, and at Liberty Park as long as it's been open. And we just believe that it's best for kids, kids learn at different paces and at different times during the day. Just like you guys have your best times of the day, kids have theirs.
It's based solely on research that will tell you that kids have optimal learning times throughout the day. And just think back to your days having to go to, I'm going to pick on math, your last period of the day every day. You know, and you just thought every day, I'm worn out by the end of the day. You know, so it's giving those kids that opportunity to learn math at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, at the end. So we rotate that schedule. When we, again, came together, we said, like Jay Marie alluded to, this isn't about schedule. This isn't about what Liberty Park does as a schedule. This isn't about what Pizitz does. The main question is, what do we want to provide for our students? And if you, as teachers and educators on that day, what are the top things you would think are most crucial and you believe are the most benefits to students? Broke off into groups. We came back, compared the four different groups of the work, and as Andy said, these are the things that came out. So when we look at these, you eventually have to say, how are we going to provide them? And what structure? A school has to have a schedule. That's where this came from. This came at the end of all the conversations. Now that we know what we want to provide to our kids, how do we structure the day so that we are giving those common shared experiences for both schools, for all the kids in both middle schools? So we left that day, came back, especially the administrators, Ms. Pierce, Andy, myself, Ms. Hanson, Kathy Nickram, who does the scheduling at Pizitz. I do the scheduling for Liberty Park, and began to hammer out what's the schedule going to look like where we can get those common themes in here. This was not an easy task. We sat down and looked at it and hammered it for one day and left not happy. And Andy came back later and said, here's another opportunity, let's take a look at this. So we sat down and we hammered it out and began to fashion what a schedule would look like. And so this is the proposed schedule that we are all extremely happy about, and we think and feel like this successfully brings about those items that were starred, and we'll see again in a few minutes. So take a minute if you want to, take a look at the schedule, just kind of quickly run through it. You'll notice doing the math, the periods are 50 minutes in length. Periods 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, and 7 are 50 minutes in length. The fourth period is going to be 78 minutes in length. That allows the time, especially for Pizitz, to run their kids all through lunch. That fourth period, your lunch is going to be paired with a class. Okay? So you may eat lunch the first section and have lunch the last two sections. And because we're going to do that class, there won't be a homeroom period in there. It's strictly class and lunch. Okay? Then we have 5th, 6th, and 7th, and then we have our last period of the day, which we're going to refer to either the pirate period, lancer period. This is the time that on one of our next slides, we'll show all the opportunities that we're going to provide to kids during that time as well.
I would like to say one more thing about the schedule. The easy thing to have done would have been to have Pizitz pick up Liberty Park schedule, or Liberty Park pick up Pizitz schedule. But what was critical and very important to everybody in the room was that we landed on something that pulled the best practice out of both places. And so it is what we have referred to as the third way. The third way is what you see in front of you. It is not either school's schedule. It is a revised look that includes as much of the best opportunities at the two schools. We looked at many other school districts and their schedules in our research, And this is not anybody else's schedule. This isn't somebody else's schedule that we just put some new names on. This is what was created with pen and pencil on paper to figure out how do we move these kids throughout the day, achieve much of what is starred, which you will see it achieves nearly everything that was starred, and still embodies some of the best from Liberty Park and some of the best from Pizette's. So I did want to point that out. Well, I just didn't want to, I wanted to clarify that this was designed with that in mind. But we did the research. We looked at what other schools were doing and still couldn't find anything that fit our desired outcomes.
And Andy's going to talk about the next slide in just a second, but in this schedule, students will take an elective of their choice, and then there's a second elective that we're going to provide to them where it's going to help them with a lot of their opportunities. You want to talk about that?
One of the things we look at, if you'll notice the schedule, we talked about not having homework. So if you start doing a little bit of math, English, science, social studies elective, PE, we got another spot. One of the things that the group really thought was important is to give kids other opportunities and provide a second elective. Well, as we started doing the math and numbers and space and all of the things, we saw that a second true elective where a child would just get to pick something else wasn't really feasible with space and a lot of things we were trying to do. So we looked at what is it that kids need to be able to do. Look at the survey data over the years. Look at anecdotal data from teachers, from parents. What do kids need to be able to do before they get to 7th grade, 8th grade, the high school? So what we did is we sat down and essentially created we say but it's essentially a 5th core class for our kids. It's called Academic Strategies. And they're slightly different. 6th and 7th grade we looked at the skills that we said kids need to be able to have. First of all, keyboarding and basic skills. Those are things that will be taught. They've been done in elementary schools. But kids need to be able to have those skills as they move it through secondary school. Organization for success. I can't tell you how much I wish we'd have been able to do this 5 years ago when I had 2 kids coming through middle school. Okay? Because this is where we talk about time management. This is where we work with kids of studying and note-taking and the things that allow kids to be successful that, again, aren't in other standards. Effective communication. How kids communicate with each other, how kids communicate with adults. That's not just spoken communication. That's not just public speaking, although that's a part of it. It's written communication. It's in presentations. It's any way that students will communicate with a larger group or with another individual. And we thought that was a really important skill. Again, they've all got their phones and they're all texting all the time. We want to know that they can have a conversation with each other and they can give information to each other in a positive way. And finally, reading strategies. We've talked several different things and run through several ideas. Some of the things we've talked about is let's help kids enjoy reading and be better readers, understand what they're reading, give them some choices in those options. Roger, I got 8th grade.
Going into 8th grade, then we're going to be a little more succinct on what we're going to offer to the kids. We know in high school now that students are required to take Career Prep A and a course called Career Prep B. Well, we can offer that at the middle school. And so in 8th grade, all students will, their academic strategies will consist of that Career Prep A, which is a semester-long course. And then the other half the time, we're going to, guidance counselors especially, be working with this teacher on college and career planning, that 4-year plan they have to create. Those of you who have high school students already, by the time they start getting to high school, they have to start planning out for 4 years what it's going to look like. But we're going to continue even a lot of the strategies that are started in 6th and 7th. Each year it'll be a tier, so we can go a little deeper. And as the students mature, how to even hone those skills even more and more. Okay. The other great thing about this course is the teacher that is going to be teaching this elective all day long will be paired with a team of teachers. So let's say in 6th grade, this teacher will be paired with a math, English, science, and social studies teacher on that team. So when those teachers are working with their students and they say, hey, look, our students are really having a weakness in organization. Can you spend a couple extra days working with them on that? Or let's say in science, they're really getting ready to work, they're working on a project and they need a little extra help in this area, and that teacher can then jump in and start working on them helping them with that. This is, while it has great content, it's going to be a little fluid, allowing that teacher to move with her students or his students as they need extra help in certain areas. Jane Marie, can you think of anything?
Well, I just wanted to speak to the Career Prep A, which is a required course. We can actually offer it as a pass-fail course, so it's actually not going to be a part of their high school GPA, which is also an advantage. We have written a waiver to position students who will be seniors in this first class to be able to have Career Prep B embedded in their government and economics class. So a student will be, with being able to get Career Prep A under his or her belt before he or she goes to the high school, will actually be given an opportunity for another elective. It will open that door as well. So that's an added benefit through this that we can offer. You cannot take Career Prep B until you are in the 9th grade, or we would do both in the 8th grade, but that's part of the course description. So we can do A and 8, and that is one of the wonderful benefits if this is something that we choose to do, that students will not have to use up one of their electives for the career prep classes, which are required.
And just to note, the career prep course that we're referring to is actually what, and I just lost her name, I hate that I didn't, Marjorie, that Marjorie spoke to earlier that she put in her digital portfolio,
which then,
just so you know that
which would
that's
get
the same thing.
Excel, Word, and PowerPoint early in the academic cycle. Right.
Yes, and some of that would be covered, some basic pieces of that would be covered in the 6th and 7th as a primer for that as well.
Okay.
This may also be a great time for the students to work on their digital portfolios. That can be incorporated this time as well, to allow them that time to get in there and work with it. I like this, and maybe I don't want to take that edit a lot. Another great thing about this elective, as the kids move through the day, one of the things, if we're not going to go back, but on the previous slide, was intervention time for students. This class period will be a great time for the interventionists to come in and work with students or full students who need some extra help in the course academic classes as well. Okay? So it kind of helps start shaping this for you a little bit. You go to our next slide, Andy.
I'm going to hit one thing about this real quick. One of the things, to me, this is the exciting part. Of all the things that we're going to talk about tonight, this is the exciting part. And the reason it is because we're building this. This is not something that we go to somebody and get a curriculum. This is the people of Vestavia Hills City Schools sit down and say, what is it that our kids need to know to be successful in whatever their next step is? And we get to design that curriculum. And to me, that's the exciting part of this academic strategy.
We've been able to sit down with Brooke and Jennifer and Jane Marie and really start hammering this out as what we feel is the core content of this class. And we are very excited about what we've come up with and what we will continue bringing to it. All right, so to kind of help you shape what a student's day would look like, this would be a sample schedule of any typical student. You'll see in there that the core, math, science, English in 4th period, PE and then social studies, and this student may have academic strategies during 5th period. This can, just like any other students you see, this schedule can change for a lot of students. My student might have academic strategies first and vice versa. But in this, one of the things is this, we talked about the rotating schedule. 4th period and the Lancer Pirate period will never rotate. Those will always be the same every day. Because just because 4th period we got to have that lunch, so it's got to stay. And then the Lancer Pirate period, being the period at lesser time, will be the one that will not rotate as well. But this is what a sample student schedule will look like.
In its earlier versions, I'll go back to student schedule. In its earlier versions, our Lancer and Pirate period were during the middle of the day, and it rotated through just like the other classes. But the more we talked about it, the more we said, because that class is going to be a little bit shorter, the teachers of those classes, the sponsors of the activities that take place during those classes, they may want that activity to last 2 hours. So if you build that time in at the end of the day, there's a seamless transition into whatever it is they do. Because the yearbook staff may want a few more minutes than they would have if we had it during the middle of the day. So that kind of gives us that flexibility, and it's not necessarily set. So if our jazz band decides X amount of days they want to practice for 2 hours, there's nowhere in our current schedule that allows them to do that other than start early and after school. And that's kind of where that came from. That's how that period ended up at the end of the day.
And
We just believe that maximizes the time for all our kids, and it allows them to participate in more than one opportunity.
And that's direct feedback from those teachers and sponsors who ask us. I will tell you, we looked at a lot of different options. We would have been remiss not to explore a lot of different things. We had the Lancer Pirate period, or first thing, middle of the day. We tried a lot of different.
We went through a lot of
schedules before we got to this one. And what the teachers and the sponsors were saying is, if I'm the drama teacher and we're practicing for the performance, the kids can get in their costumes for the dress rehearsal, and we can start at 2. I have to go back to the timestamp, 2:40 something, and we could be finished with our drama practice by 5:30 for children to go home, have dinner with their families, do their homework on a Wednesday, go to church. You know, what we found was if we do this at the end of the day, kids get a little bit of a head start on some of those extracurricular opportunities so that they're not waiting till 3 or 3:30 to begin those. So we really listened to the teachers, and they felt like the end of the day was the best choice. So that's how we landed on that.
Well, and I think you hit on it a little bit. It's also timing for the families is really important. You guys know driving kids to baseball and to soccer and to dance and all of those things, that 25 minutes is important. That 25 minutes may be the difference in you eating in the car on the way or being able to sit down as a family before you go. So that's a really important piece of that, being able to start just a little earlier.
So I'm getting very confused. What's the difference in terms of, the schedule right now?
We'll finish. They'll explain all that.
So on this is then a sample of what a teacher's schedule would look like. You'll see the class represents when they're teaching whatever class it is. Let's say math. The teacher may teach first, third, and so on and so forth. You'll see in there, for example, in this one, the second period, this teacher has the PLC professional development, and then fifth period planning. Again, research shows that if we're going to ask teachers to have professional development, the best thing to do is embed that professional development in their day, instead of asking them to stay after school longer when they have other duties to do, or on the weekend. If teachers are going to be authentic and really get in there and work to help those kids become engaged, research shows embedded professional development is the way to do that. So let's say, for example, in the second period, this PLC is professional learning community. It can be made up either of a team of teachers, one of all 4 core academics, or it can be a department of teachers, all math teachers. So this would be that PLC professional development time for them to meet with each other, to look at what their students, what are they asking their students to do? What are the standards asking the students to be able to know and do, let's say in math? That's what teachers ask in PLC. Then they ask, how do we know that they have achieved that information or that they're able to do it? But that's assessment. They look at that. And then the third question is, what do we do for those students who aren't getting it? And what do we do for those students who are and they're ready to move on? So that's the 3 guiding questions that teachers are asking all the time about student assessment. What do we want them to know, be able to do? How are we going to know they've achieved it? And number 3, what are we going to do for them? So they meet either as teams of teachers to answer those questions on a daily basis during this time, or they meet as departments, however we schedule it, to answer those questions. So continually looking at assessment, continue looking at how our students are doing, what do we need to do differently. That's what's done in that PLC professional development. Then the other planning is for their personal planning time to work on their lesson plans and parent conferences, things like that.
The next, and we've covered some of this as we've gone through, but we felt it was important to talk about it again. Rogers got finished talking about the embedded professional development planning across the grades. I can't stress to you how important it is to have people who are working on the same things working together. Just like any other business or any other group that wants to see things improve and that want to make a plan, they work together. Everybody doesn't sit in their own little rooms and then come together, do the same thing and hope it works. This is having conversations about what's best for kids. And at the end of the day, everything that we've talked about, every conversation that we've had has had kids in mind. And I really think that's one that's going to make a big deal. Again, continued schedule rotation. Research says it's best for kids, for middle-level kids, middle-aged kids too, but middle-level kids, to have that continued schedule rotation. Systematic intervention built in during the day. It's not fair to ask a kid that needs help to come in early or stay late. We feel like we need to help them while we've got them from 8:05 to 3:15.
And currently, to do intervention, a lot of times we have to pull them from a class that they need to be in because we've got to do it during the day, so we have to pull the kid from science to do the intervention. Doing the intervention with the academic strategies class will keep from having to pull students from core academics.
Pirate and Lancer period, I said Pirate and Lancer period, I've done that twice. Lancer and Pirate period. We'll come back to that in just a minute because there's some advantages there and some things that we'll talk about in a second. Academic strategies course for 6th and 7th grade students, career prep A option for 8th grade students. To me, and I said this before, and I can't say it enough because I've said it to them 1,000 times, and I'm probably driving them crazy. This is the piece that makes us better. This makes us better the first day we have the schedule because we've decided, and our teachers have decided, and we've taken input from parents over the years, what is it that our kids need to know and be able to do. And this is something that is, again, outside of math, English, science, and social studies. These are the things, the skills that we believe our kids need to have before they move on to whatever is next to be successful. So that, to me, that's the exciting part of what we're doing. Finally, sticking back to Lancer and Pirate period, these are some possible offerings. It is not by any means the final list, the exhaustive list, and I think it's important to realize that these are some options that we currently have in place. These are some things that we do now, that Liberty Park does now, some things we're going to try to have as many common experiences for our schools during that time as possible. And this is a list of things that, and this is, again, if we see interest from kids, if we have a teacher that says, I'd really like to do this, and we think kids would want to do it, we're going to put it on that list. We're not limiting, this is not a final list by any means, but it is important to note that there are things there that, you know, honestly, you can't do in 25 minutes. And I'll use chess. You can't play chess in 25 minutes. That's something if you want to, unless you're really bad like me, I play really fast. But you can have those, you can sit down and you can start. And if you want to stay, you allow your kids to stay. It's an opportunity to do two things. One, build skills and have them with some opportunities that they currently don't have, but they don't have, or they may not have. They don't have to come back. They don't have to stay till 4 o'clock. They don't have to stay till 5 o'clock. It gives them an opportunity to do that and start it during the school day. And we believe that that time is valuable.
I'd like to say a couple of things about this. It is by design that this is not called 8th period. It is by design because this is a new and fresh approach to provide engaging opportunities for kids. It is not Pizette's 8th period with a shine on it. It's something brand new. It is going to require both schools to dig in deep and say, what is it about digital photography do we want as an outcome for our students? It's going to require teachers to come to the table and yet again, design common experiences. So to have just put an 8th period in front of the timestamp that you see in the schedule would have limited what we see the potential for this to be. So while much of what you see offered at Pizette's currently during the 8th period is reflected there, please know that there are students who currently might not be as engaged as, for example, jazz band or cheerleaders. But we know that we have not tapped into what they need. This is a way to address that. So while the best of what we have is there too, there was much work to be done. And this is reflective of that. So again, this list was curated from both schools. This list was curated from emails, conversations, focus groups, both parents and teachers. So this is not just us saying, I don't know, what do you think they should do? We were listening to kids, we looked at survey data from kids, and like both Andy and Roger referenced, we intend to make sure that it's inclusive to offer as many opportunities as reasonable with the staff and the environment that we can do that.
I think one thing that's really important to point out for us is that the schedule we came up with in the courses came from learning from each other. You know, we took a look at what's currently at our schools, and you know, if you know anything about us, Liberty Park had a modified block schedule. They had the 7 period day, and we said, So how do we mold those two together? And in our block, we were able to do the embedded professional development. And because it says we want to do that as well, we find that it's important. So that's how we came into this schedule with offering the 2 electives for the students, and it allows the teachers to have that extra planning time to have that PLC. So they took that from us and said, we think that's really important to include. Likewise with us, this Lancer pirate period at the end of the day, we had offered it as every other, we kind of rotated every 2 weeks, we had activity period and did some of these things for our students. And we said, so how do you do it at Pizzitz? And this is where we came together and learned from one another on this aspect. So that's why I think we're very excited to be able to present this schedule to you all, because it really is a melding, a molding, however you want to say it, of the 2 schools, looking at what's best about each other and making it better.
One of the things I think it's worth mentioning here, and it's something we've talked about, and we really, I'm going to say I'm proud of the work that our teachers have done. I'm proud of the work our administrators have done. This is something that at the end of the day, I feel really, really good about. But I think one of the things with this, and I think it's important to say, is 5 days a week at the end of the day allows us to do a couple of things. One, if you've got a student who is in yearbook staff but also wants to play chess, if you've got a student who is cross country and track but also wants to play in the jazz band, if we have that opportunity every day, it allows those activities to share students. Because what we don't want to do, we don't want to come up with all of these great things for kids and then say, sorry, you can only choose one of them. Okay, I think it's important for us as we plan and look at these to think about how kids are going to be shared, how kids are going to be able to participate in more than one thing. And like I said, I'm really excited about this option, about the proposal.
Excellent, Johnny. Next.
We have our final slide. I guess you could say we saved the best for last. You have to have people to make this happen. Currently, Liberty Park Middle is on a block schedule. Currently, they have a science and a social studies teacher for every grade except for 6th. They have a lot of kids in those classes, and they actually currently don't even have as many minutes as the other parts of the block schedule do. We know that if we're going to move out of the block schedule, then you have to have the personnel to make that happen. That was part of what we heard as an alignment issue. The number of academic minutes, 86 versus more of a traditional schedule at Pizzitz, 50 odd minutes, depending on what schedule of the day you're on, the difference there. So this list reflects that. It also reflects some of the alignment that we know we are committed to doing. For example, the 7th grade gifted specialist has to be a part of this equation as one of our alignment commitments. And of course, interventionist is another. And then when you look at your academic strategies teachers, that is part of the new schedule. And we have to have those positions in place for the schedule to work, for teachers to be able to meet on that PLC. So we recognize that what we're asking for is a lot, but to make this happen, this is what we've set down and figured out we will need.
Folks, we'll open it up for questions from you all, but do any of us up here have questions? First, let me just say thank you. That's
excellent job.
Casey and Roger.
And we didn't even hear from Brooke and Jennifer, who both were a part of this process, and Casey as well, and Kathy Nickram. There are many others. We're just the voice for a large people standing behind us, but there are actually people in the room tonight that...
We're standing on shoulders tonight.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Well, it's an extraordinary, I mean, just looking at what you guys have done over the last several months, it's an extraordinary amount of work, and the creativity and the thoughtfulness that has been put in to try to, like you said, Roger, try to get the best of
both.
both.
And again, I appreciate Dr. Phillips, Jane Marie, giving us that freedom and the charges what is best for students. It wasn't here's what we want you to do in this framework or in this time or in this strict environment. They said, tell us what is best for students in this environment.
One of the questions that that probably all 5 of us have received over the last couple weeks emailed to us from very talented kids who graduated from the high school fairly recently, and many of whom I think flowed through Pizitz, but there was a great deal of concern expressed about the math team in particular. Can you address kind of how that, I mean, just looking at it, what the experiences have been with math team, and then going forward under this scenario, what it would look like?
Pizitz or Liberty Park?
Both are, yeah.
Because it's a little different
very
experience.
different.
So
Okay.
I think that's probably where we'll start.
Yeah, please.
What we've done in the last, and I can't say how many years, several years, we have had all of our math team kids in a similar homeroom, which is 26 minutes or so. It's the other half lunch. So they've been in a homeroom together. They've all been in a common 8th period class under our current structure. In terms of what that would look like in the new proposed schedule, there's not a homeroom, so they would not be together during homeroom. Now, they may be scheduled together for math class, so that's a pretty easy schedule, and that's not unusual. They take similar math classes anyway, so what you'll find is most of those kids will be in the same math class. Now again, I can't promise that because I don't know what electives people are taking and things like that. Sure. But they would also have the similar opportunity with the pirate period that they have currently with 8th period.
And historically, for us, ours has been, math team would take place during homeroom, or they would also they would come in before school and have math team or stay after school as well. They worked it in that way, and like Amy said, a lot of times they were in math class already in an advanced class, but typically if they wanted to get extra time, they would come before school or during homeroom.
Can I speak to homeroom for a second? Because it is something that came up in our focus group. What we did not bring down here, although we should have, are these ragtag looking sticky notes that have been carried around at every meeting and stuck to that back wall to say, let's not lose focus of what we want and what we don't want. And one of the things, and we actually had it in the slide at one time, but we ended up like modifying it to say something different, was teachers felt like homeroom was a waste of time, and that they would like to have captured that time back in either intervention, academic, or some sort of an elective or after school kind of opportunity that begins with pirate or lancer period. So our taking that homeroom out was a direct response from teachers who said that they felt like we could use that time better someplace else. So I just wanted to address that because that never got said today. It just didn't find its way on the list because it didn't seem very compelling, but it is an important part of our decision on that.
They said I just whispered Amy something, but taking that homeroom time is what allowed us to get more time in the day to have that other second elective.
And as I think about that, just what we've gone through over the last year with more high school options, with more choices that high school kids have, of course the change of the schedule that happened for this school year, at least my look at this, it seems that this dovetails with that. It provides more opportunities for kids with this extra elective, with the Lancer Pirate period segment as well.
It's going to be a great segue from middle school to high school.
We actually feel like that bonus of having Career Prep A taken out of the equation for high school, as well as what can happen the second half of their 8th grade year in preparation for the move to the high school. I think we can be very intentional as we look at making a transition even stronger for our middle schools to our high school, because the kids will be able to, on the other side of that elective, work on that as well. So we really see that as being a great opportunity for us to look at what are we doing to transition kids from one place to another.
I have an observation and a question. I love the Career Prep A thing. You know, as the parent of a senior, you know, and kind of watching that if you participate in a certain number of things, it really limits what you can take. And so pulling that out, so you could have taken something else, that's big. I love seeing keyboarding in there. You know, watching, you know, this.
It's not a Casio.
Yeah, yeah. With the return, but you know, so I'm glad to see that, and all those things, organization. I think all that is great. You know, the question I would have is that all of life is trade-offs, right? So these are a lot of positives. What do you feel that we're giving up to get these things?
When we took a look at that,
Yeah, I mean, I think that with the Lancer Pirate period, we're hard pressed to really come up with anything. Now, I will tell you, along the way, we looked at lots of schedules. And lots of schedules, there was big advantage, disadvantage list. When we got down to this, if there was a disadvantage, it's maybe the few minutes that we might have that we don't currently have in each academic period, but they're negligible. 2 or 3 minutes is basically all that we are losing, which I know cumulatively adds up. I understand that completely. But we felt like what can happen in something like our academic strategies class will actually balance out whatever that might look like, or the pirate period as well. So I would say, because I would say that that was something we all felt like we wish that we could have had a few more minutes in the academic. I mean, that was one of Casey's points that she made every time was, are we limiting what's happening in the regular classroom? And we felt like it was a couple of minutes, and we did a lot. That's why we're looking at a schedule that ends at 3:15 rather than.
So other than adding minutes to the day, there's not really anything you're like, ooh, I wish we could have gotten that in there.
Yeah, I really.
I mean, we addressed the teachers, the professional learning time, for the professional learning communities, and allowing the time for that to be embedded in the day more deliberately for the planning purposes of that,
right.
Making sure that we are providing the intervention piece. That was not only teachers but parents as well. Making certain that we had those common experiences as far as course offerings and those kinds of things came out very clearly in all that we're doing. And with the growth in population and the differences and the needs that we know that we are experiencing, I think it addresses those as well. So, I mean, it's difficult. Now, I will say, if you look at the last slide, the real challenge is for Greg and I to sit down and say, okay, how are we going to support this? But you put we know that our resources have to go into our personnel and giving them the opportunity to do the work that they do. And this is important, and therefore, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Dave, but we will be sitting at the table and laying it all out and figuring out where are we going to put this, that, and the other, and we may have to transition some in some places, but no.
Sure.
So as we sit down and look at the payoff, and the outcomes that this will bring, we think it's well worth it.
Right, and an example will be having a common schedule. If you have a teacher, such as in the world language, that we can share, or balancing those numbers more easily between or among or only in one school. It gives you more flexibility and the ability to do that. So yes, this is what that looks like, but that doesn't mean that as we flesh this out, it will actually take that many new people. There are key pieces in here. Interventionists. We've been asking and talking about for years about the need to shore that up and have that more deliberate and targeted for our students, particularly at our middle schools, as we, and the reading piece is big. I mean, we move away from that when we get to middle schools. That is an area that our assessments show that there needs to be some growth. So you can't just look at the numbers and now we are, but it goes beyond that. And if we're truly going to make our middle schools be aligned and incorporate what we recognized in them, as Jane Marie said back in 2014 and was affirmed by our accreditation, this is that important.
So is the recommendation that we do this in the fall of 2017?
That is correct.
And so we would need 21 new teachers?
Not immediately. Not necessarily immediately. We have to take a look at who do we have, where are they. I mean, this was hard work, but the real hard work is about to begin as we do personnel planning in the spring, and where do we have people. And for instance, I could give examples from both schools, but one example would be because of the numbers of students of 500 versus 1,100, it is more difficult to divide out courses so that your class enrollment and the number of students that are sitting in desks actually pans out and they're even numbers. So you may have a teacher, a first or second period, who has to do something different, such as intervention, something along those lines, and doesn't have the volume of students. Sometimes that happens in your elective classes. So there's a lot that goes into that. But yes, that's what we're possibly projecting. And when I say this is conservative, that's not what I mean necessarily, but we know that will be the high end of what we have to do, if that makes sense.
I also want to speak to David's question about what are the disadvantages. I can tell you that every time that we got through a certain place in this, we asked the administration to take it back and put it in front of people and say, what did we miss? What did we miss? What did we miss? And so that process became just this continuous cycle of, okay, we think we have it, take it back. Okay, we thought we had it, now take it back again. To the point that it was like, really, you know? But we just wanted to be sure that we had this in front of as many people who weren't our eyes, who hadn't been sitting there to say what's missing.
The persistent socialization of it. Yeah.
There you go.
So we know we have some personnel issues to manage. Do we have any space issues that we have to address?
Well, I don't think that we do. We actually sat down, not necessarily for this purpose, but we know we have space at Liberty Park because there are some open classrooms. At Pizitz, we did have to go back and take a look at how our space is being used. But we feel like we pretty well have a handle on that, and they may have to move in and out.
We may have to move some computers and reconfigure some rooms, but not anything that would be an expense that we can.
Correct. Yes.
Greg, did you have something you wanted to add?
Any other questions from folks up here? So, not sure how many folks might have questions, but yes, if we can just so we can move along with 3 minutes or so would be great. And yes, ma'am, if you.
Thank y'all so much for this. It's exciting. My children are at Liberty Park Middle School. Will the additional languages that are offered at Pizitz be offered at Liberty Park Middle?
They will. Currently, we will see what the registration looks like. If we have a student, we'll have to rethink how we would offer it for a student. If we have 20 students, that puts us in a different place. So we'll just have to see how the registration goes for that. But yes, we intend to, they will be offered.
Okay, one other, that's great, thank you, I'm so excited. Additional question, for the intervention time, is that during the Lancer time?
No.
That's during
That is completely separate.
Yeah.
The academic strategies time will be a great time for the intervention to take place.
Okay.
That way they're not being pulled from the regular academic classes.
Yeah, I was just wondering how the teachers were going to manage sponsoring one of those Lancer period activities.
That's what it takes a bit more.
Which accounts for that separate personnel need.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I am concerned about math team. That's the main reason I'm paying. There's a difference between the math class and math team. In this, they're going to lose that 30 minutes in homeroom, and then they're going to lose that afternoon, that 8 period.
If they're on math team, they'll only lose of the current 8 periods that we have at Pizitz and the proposed schedule that we have there. They would lose 6 minutes during that pirate period. So that would be, and that would be one of the trade-offs, is that homeroom time.
6 minutes. 36 minutes, they'll lose that. And I don't quite understand how that Lancer pirate works. You're saying that a child could have different opportunities in the same week?
Just like now, we have and I'll use jazz band and track because I've had a conversation with both of those people in the last week or so, is they work out a schedule. For example, Coach Williams may need the kids on Monday and Wednesday. Miss Bain will work with the kids the other days. So they're just able to work out a schedule between themselves. That's really, especially as we go to a more targeted pirate period, Lancer period, those conversations will take place a lot more seriously. We'll talk about giving, because again, this started with giving kids more opportunities to learn new things, be successful, and that's why that ended up where it did in the afternoon. And that 5 days a week allows that sharing time.
I just want you to know how it broke about the math team.
So that means for the Lancer period, still there is teachers, offline students for different stuff, and then they still like for example, like math team. If their teacher is still organize the kids to come to study specific stuff and go out to competition or something. So it's all well organized to like
Yes. And they currently do that at Pizitz.
What's the before there were like 30 minutes, right now it's they're trying to 25 minutes?
Yes, I think it's 31. I think we lose 6 minutes during that. It's 31 minutes as opposed to 25.
So all the other programs like robotics and then so any program still exists?
Yes. Any of the programs that we had up there or things that we may add down the road will take place during that pirate period, which is that 25 minutes.
Yes, sir.
This is a phenomenal and progressive activity, and I really like that. My question was to understand the genesis of this. So I heard that there was an accreditation activity that went on. What were the exact recommendations of those to bring the two schools together? But they must have cited something positive from each school, something negative. So my question is there a positive that we are trading off for bringing up the negatives? And I know that I cannot read the whole report, neither can you explain this to me, but I'm just appealing that do not miss the balance.
Do you want to address the accreditation, or do you?
I can. We recognized back in 2014 variances in the experiences is the best way for me to go back. We've touched on that and spoken to that. But what we knew about ourselves, but we weren't talking about 3 years ago, were the balance of experiences and making sure that those students had those common experiences and abilities to take similar courses and those kinds of things in preparation for the high school. And making sure that as our students funneled through middle school, got to the high school, that they had the same experiences as far as learning, so that assessments, when they got there, they had the same opportunities to participate in the coursework or projection of what they may want the outcomes to be in the end. The approach, and I think if I'm understanding what you're saying, is how did you bring the negatives or the positives so that they're in the same place as they described? This wasn't about taking a checklist of who was and who wasn't. This was identifying first and foremost, not putting a skeleton or a sketch up there of anything, but identifying what was important, whether it came from the parent perspective of intervention, if you will, the foreign languages, or it came from teachers as far as professional learning communities and time for job-embedded professional development, or even from our students as far as the rotating schedule was concerned. So the approach wasn't, well, we have some negative things, we have some positive things, and we want to equal those things out. I addressed I'll use the course alignment piece. As I said in many of our meetings, we went from our version of middle school alignment, which was making sure that as we assess students, as we teach students, and as students learn, that those opportunities were the same in preparation for the high school. But in the conversation, it became about course selection. Well, we married those two things. We took what we knew was important from all of those different angles and said, these are the things that are important to us. Now, how do we build a schedule from that? So it didn't become about the haves and the have-nots anymore. It became about what was important and building something and taking a look at every piece of data point that we could to make sure we were making wise decisions about what we wanted to offer to our middle schoolers. Does that answer your question?
It does. I just was wondering if we, and I there's no way that I can verify this or you can convince me. So that whenever there is an accreditation, there is a recommendation. Was the recommendation only to bring those schools at par with each other and align them, or was the recommendation beyond this point and cited something bigger goal that was accomplished by this activity?
We don't have a bigger goal than wanting students to have common experiences at both of our middle schools that align with what they are going to be expected to do when they get to the high school. And that was our key charge. Now, can I quantify that for you? That's where I'm going to get into these different places as far as what we can and cannot do. But what we know is that we have the experts to design this. We brought them to the table. We mulled over it, took information from many, many different places, and built something based on what we know from our teachers, from the parents, from the work, what the expectations are for our students. And we started that work with our accreditation when we recognized that when students were getting to the high school, their experiences were not looking the same.
And so we probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, the accreditation report from a few years ago is something that we could get to you to review at your convenience if you'd like.
It's actually on our website. It's actually on our website. But I'm happy to talk about it further and share with you as much as I possibly can.
Thank you for being here.
I'd like to make a comment and then ask questions. My comment for math team is actually my understanding when I was in middle school too, the way it worked is we would have our math class, and we'd have math team as part of homeroom and as part of 8th period. So by taking homeroom out and shortening that 8th period, we're actually losing a lot more than 6 minutes.
36.
Right, and so that's what is. And again, I would say that's probably, that homeroom time is probably, going back to your statement and your question, that homeroom time is probably the trade-off. That if we're talking about trade-offs with the new schedule compared to what we had before, that homeroom time is probably that trade-off there.
And also, 8th period, my daughter can be a part of math team because of homeroom. So, but I see you really a lot of good things, and I'm glad this effort has been started. This has been needed for a long time, I think. But thank you. I mean, this is a good trade-off.
Thank you,
And can I ask a quick follow-up on that? Is that, so my brother was a mathlete in high school, and I was not. And, but I drove him up there at 7:15 and is in this example, then, like, my daughter's in drama right now at Pizzette's, and so she goes like 4:30, certain days and things like that. Because of the Pirate Lancer period, there would be the opportunity for the math team teacher to say, hey, we got a tournament coming up, so we're going to go till 3:30 or 3:45, starting in the Pirate period, and extend that at their really discretion and the cooperation of the team.
That's a great example that can apply to any of those programs as well.
As long as the teacher and the sponsor was cool with that, right?
And our sponsors are stipend for the extracurricular experience after the regular school day. So.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to also I'm from Liberty Park, and my son is on math team, so we do it a little bit differently, and I'm going, wow, they do all of that math team at the school. My son has to go 3 days a week, and I take him to school early. And he gets up, and he's awake, and everybody has to go to school early, and that's what we do. So we have been, I don't mind it, and granted, I realize it's close to our home, but we've been very successful, and there's been, all the kids go, and they've had those experiences. So I'll just give you that, if that's an opportunity too. I'm kind of grasping all of this. My question, and I may have missed it, and I apologize if I did, and if this is not the right form, you can cut it off. Sports, so like football. So you have that Lancer Pirate period. How does that play into football? And I know that there's been some talk, and again, if this
A
is
lot
not
of talk. No, it actually is. It's a good example. It's a good example. You want to speak to athletics.
We actually have the athletic director with us through this process to ask him about the athletics role in this particular spot. He actually went back and spoke to lots of coaches. So we had that, absolutely had that voice in this conversation. But in terms of like the logistics of how that would work, that would have to be addressed specifically with the coaches and the individual schools. But it is included here, which at one time that was a debate whether or not athletics would have been involved in the Pirate Lancer period.
And are they is right now thinking to still keep football teams separate and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Currently, yes.
Well, it'll be a part of this.
Oh, I thought you meant school to school.
School, like, will Lancer still have Lancer football teams?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's what I thought you meant.
Rumors how they go.
Alternative fact, I believe.
Just a few more questions, folks. Yes, sir.
Was any consideration given to offering some of these options during the alternative strategy?
The academic strategies, yes.
One of the things, we actually talked a lot about that, and it kind of has come back, and there's really we're not to a point where we're going to say we can't do that yet. We've still kind of sort of fleshing some of that out. But where we look at that would be, like if I were the academic strategies teacher, I would be teaching it 5 periods a day. If he were the math teacher, he would be teaching that 5 periods a day. So there really wouldn't be another time during his schedule if he were math team sponsor, jazz band sponsor. There really may not be a time without being really creative, which we may be able to be. I'm not saying that we can't, to make that happen where the person who, I'll use math team because that's what we've been talking about. There may not be a time where that math team sponsor could not teach math. And that's balance out the numbers on the team. Does that make sense? Because he or she would have 5 periods of math that they were teaching, and there wouldn't be that extra availability.
I'm going to jump into this a little bit. And yes, there is a possibility of what you're talking about. I'll use jazz band for an example, say for 8th grade. If you're 8th grade and you have jazz band, it could be possible that we schedule those kids who are in jazz band to be in the same academic strategies class. So that some days they may go and practice jazz during that academic strategies if that time allows, or they're at a place where they can. Again, it's that conversation between the jazz band teacher and the academic strategies teacher. So yes, there is some ebb and flow with that allows for some possibility.
So that's not necessarily a dead idea, because there's only one math class a day, and it seems, or math team class a day. It seems like that might be an optimal solution to.
We have run that scenario. We actually did, like with real kids and the teacher, and said, can this happen? And with a lot of creativity, there are some things that can happen within that academic strategies, but it also ends up with what electives kids choose. It's not just a cut and dry, like everybody who wants to be in jazz band 7th grade can be in the same. It also depends on if they choose French, or they choose FACS, or some other options for them. So, but we feel like that there's some room for that. But it's hard for us to say for sure positive this can happen, but we feel pretty strong that we can make some things happen.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I kind of come at things from a different perspective. Every child is different. I have a freshman in high school who I left sleep on the couch today because he was worn out. He had to be at Scouts at 7. But he had homework and he was up till midnight last night. And so what I see good things, but I see you're taking away homeroom, which takes away social time. You've got 4 minutes between classes, which the high school tried, and they couldn't do it because they couldn't get where they need to go. And you're staying 10 minutes longer. You're at another class. And so what I see is more stress on our kids. If possibly homework was decreased, or if this academic strategies class doesn't have homework.
That's the idea.
And it will not be a graded class, it's a pass-fail.
Be done during.
There is a possibility for that. That, as I said, that class is very fluid. Is that teacher is going to be in tune with those other teachers and her team, is her to know when I can kind of push and when I can kind of back off, and allow them some time to get some work done. It can be a laid back kind of environment, because you mentioned the social time that we understand in middle school is very important. That can take place during that academic strategies time as well.
And those have been some of the things that we've discussed in terms of how that class is structured, whether it be, and again, some certain times during that week in that academic strategies class where they may have X amount of time. Guys, tomorrow bring your math homework, or tomorrow bring whatever homework you've got and work on in that class. So there are some times that we are looking to build into that so that kids have that time that they're able to plug in now.
And I see it more for a 6th grader coming from a teacher with them all day, that environment. It'll take them a little bit of time to adjust, especially with no homeroom. So is there like a particular teacher that's kind of the teacher they go to?
Yeah. That is actually a benefit that we didn't even speak to, and that is that we foresee that this academic strategies teacher creating kind of a mentor-mentee with kids, as well as the counselor. We see the counselor being a part of that on a regular basis. So absolutely, that's one of the benefits.
So would they, I know parties aren't a big deal to y'all, but would they do like a homeroom party, like we have 2 parties?
We don't foresee that being a part of
so
this.
They just automatically be a child in elementary school, and then all of a sudden when they're 11 or 12, they're just...
Well, we never factored in class parties in any of our conversations.
Again, like things in terms of teams. That's 125 kids will be on one team. With all those teachers will know those kids. That academic strategies teacher will kind of be that oversee of those kids, that go-to person that you were talking about, and working in conjunction with those teachers to really understand those kids, know those kids, make those connections and bond with those kids, so that they have that person to come to. And when they're in academic strategies, it may be that, hey, we need to sit and talk today. It may be time we spend a little time working on this. So, so it's really that personal time that academic strategies teacher is going to really go down.
Folks, we've been going a little over an hour and a half. We've got one more topic to cover for the work session. So we'll take about a 5-minute break, come back to the facility discussion. Again, Casey, please tell the teachers at Liberty Park. Andy, please tell the teachers at Pizitz and all the other folks who had input in this. Thank you for all the work that they've done. So 5-minute break and we'll come back and talk about facilities. Yeah, folks, let's go ahead and get started with our last topic for tonight, the facility discussion. It's a continuation of a lot of discussion. We have in the last, in our November meeting, we had a work session and discussion. December meeting, we had a work session and discussion. And this is our work session to discuss as well in January. Let me turn it to you, Brendan. Thank you.
Okay. For those that don't know me, I'm Brennan Bell with War Program Management. So the first thing we wanted to update you on this month is where we're at with the demographic study. As you remember from last month, Tracy Richter from Dion Richter spoke. And the first slide kind of gives us an update of where we're at on that. The first item was the enrollment projections that we were looking at. Last month we were at the first stage of that, just data collection. We had some delays in getting the information we needed from the state. We had hoped by this meeting we'd be ready to share some of that enrollment projection information. That gathering of information from the state took a lot longer than expected. So they got that this week actually. So they've started their data entry process. They're in the data analysis process right now, which is why it's highlighted in red. They have told me they expect the draft of the report by this Friday. So by the time we have that report, we can start going through it, looking at it. They have a feedback section, which is where we look at that report, we analyze, does it line up with what we were thinking? Is there anything they might have misinterpreted about your feeder patterns, your facilities? Did they look at any information wrong? And then that's just kind of time for us, them, and y'all to get together and provide feedback to each other. It could be 100% accurate from everything on your end, so at that point it becomes a final report, or they go back and change a few things and do some tweaks. But we expect by this Friday to have that enrollment projection draft and really give us the direction we were needing, that was showing the growth in all of your existing feeder patterns, where there's growth expected within the neighborhoods that you currently have. You'll notice...
Talk to the joint venture. Do you know?
I don't know if they asked for any of the, I know that they asked, I don't know exactly how they asked for that
I don't want them to base
information.
their analysis on the last 3 or 5 years. They need to make sure they talk to Liberty Park to understand their projections.
Well, that part of that second phase is the subdivision yield analysis, which is more geared towards that growth of the actual neighborhoods and expected growth and building in that neighborhood. I think Liberty Park, we know, is kind of the main spots for those new neighborhoods. They did go back as far back as they could on that Liberty Park side of things, so they are factoring that in.
I'm making a note that we'll just make sure that we verify with them that they've actually had the conversation, so that they have both of those
Don't
points.
rely on
that
historical,
it has
is all I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of that subdivision analysis is they are also talking with the city, trying to gather some information about GIS layers. That's kind of where the subdivision yield analysis takes longer than just the enrollment projection of existing neighborhoods, existing growth within those neighborhoods. That's why it's still in a data collection. We're still gathering information, and in that process from the city. We hope to have that this week, hopefully, and then they can move forward to that data creation, data analysis, and giving us a report on that subdivision yield analysis. One thing you'll note is Cooperative Strategies. That is Dion Richter. They changed their name over this year. That's just why you're seeing that logo there instead of the old one. So we hope within the next month to have that enrollment projection, hopefully solidified, final report, and we can really start moving forward with where's our growth, where are our needs, and what are we going to do at each school based on the needs of the growth, and what makes the most financial sense, facility-wise sense, where can we build for the future. So that's kind of where our demographic study is at. So I'm going to transition into what we've been doing kind of the last month, as well as a construction update of where our ongoing projects are facility-wise. Liberty Park is progressing. This project is scheduled to complete at the end of next month. We're still tracking for that classroom addition portion to be done by the end of next month. The exterior of the building is pretty much complete with the exception of some landscaping, sidewalks, drives, things like that, but mainly in the interior portion of the building at this time. Doing finish work, putting floor tile down, ceiling tile, paint on the walls, case work, bathroom tile. So in the finished work stages of that project, it is tracking and progressing like it should. So we expect hopefully by next month to tell you that we're having a final inspection at the end of the month. Just some progress pictures for you. These are all exterior pictures of the building. You can see the bricks complete, roof panels are on, just some exterior drive work, sidewalks, landscaping to finish up on the exterior of the building. Interior, casework's been delivered, starting casework installation. Ceiling grid is in, waiting on inspection for above ceiling, and then some VCT flooring, like you can see in this bottom right hand picture, is down. They'll do the corridors last, so interior work's progressing. At Cahaba Heights, the project that's ongoing is the cafeteria expansion and the new gymnasium. Right now, we received the substantial completion on the cafeteria addition portion expansion this past week. So that building is, that portion of the building is now y'all's to move into. You'll see some pictures on the next slide of what that looks like, but that has been turned over, so that expansion portion can be used at this time. The gym is progressing as well for an April turnover. Steel's been erected, the roof's on, bricks finished at this time. There's some remaining stonework right at the entrance that's ongoing, but it's progressing like we think it should. The window systems are being installed. The window systems are being framed. Glass will go in soon for the large curtain wall that you can see from the parking lot. Still making good progress at the gym. Once that's closed in, there's not a lot of interior finish work associated with the gym. It's just paint, gym floors, bleachers, and then just fitting out of office spaces and the restrooms inside of there. Another part, so the next, I'll show some pictures of phase one, then we'll talk about some of the next phases at Cahaba Heights and where we're kind of planning and working towards there. Here's exterior shots of the gym. The top left picture is kind of standing in the parking lot looking at the gym from the existing school. The top portion will all be glass, curtain wall. You can see the brick wrapping around the building is complete. This is the stone entrance wall by the main entrance of the gym I was referring to, and then the retaining walls being installed that'll sit next to that roadway. The interior portions, the bottom two pictures are the cafeteria expansion. So you can see it's a bright and colorful expansion. That there's a wood partition picture in that bottom right. Through there is your existing cafeteria. So like I said, had substantial completion achieved on that project. They're just working through minor punch list items right now. The top portions are the interior of the gym. You can see the prime paint on the walls, the roof's on, and then they're just finishing out mechanical, electrical, plumbing, overhead, and starting to work towards heavy finishes inside of the gym. One of the next phases of the project is a vehicular circulation project and relocation of the playground. You'll see this called Phase 3. Phase 2 that is currently planned is a classroom addition and new media center at Cahaba Heights. That plan is pretty much finalized. We're waiting on now for the enrollment projection to verify that that is indeed the growth we expect and we assume in the Cahaba Heights area, and then we'll move forward with that project and put it out to bid if that enrollment projection comes back positive like we think it is. This Phase 3 project is kind of the next phase that we also know is a very needed item at Cahaba Heights regardless of what happens with the enrollment projection, and that is the traffic issues you have now from stacking of carpool that sits on your roadways. You don't have a lot of stack space as it is, So the next phase is kind of address that carpool, make a larger circulation for stack space for carpool, add some additional parking, and then relocate your playground. So I was going to bring up Sean from Lathan to kind of walk us through what you have now as far as existing property lines and what your vehicular circulation and kind of a proposed design of what we think could help out with that.
As you can see just from this, the heavy line there is the current boundary of Cahaba Heights. And Brendan and I have met with the city, we've met with Dr. Phillips, and we've basically come to the conclusion that when Cahaba Heights was transferred to the Board of Education, the mayor just kind of went, well, that looks like that should be school property, and that's kind of what happened. So the boundary you're looking at, especially at the bottom that gets kind of curlicued and this, that, and other, follows the line of the roadway and what was or will become the parking area that kind of on the very top where the gym is. So, and then we'll go to the next slide and kind of show you what we are proposing and what we've talked about, not only Sheila but the city as well, is proposing a new loop road that accomplishes a few things. First of all, it gets more stacked to get cars off of Dolly Ridge and onto the site proper. It also allows for a good bit more parking. That is something that we've again talked to the city quite a bit about, a shared use of parking. And then again, just getting the stack, getting the cars themselves off of the road, just from a safety standpoint. So what we're proposing is you would come in by New Merkle, just like you do now, come up the drive, and right now, it splits. You can go towards the school. That will remain. And the reason for that is for either teachers or parents, say dropping off late, don't want to go through this big loop road, that access will still remain. We can gate it if necessary. I think currently Officer Leos puts up kind of temporary type barricades. But where that road currently splits to the left, we would propose coming down the site through what is now the current playground, and then loop around back towards the ball fields. You can see it kind of turn around, and then there's still sort of an access back to the fields, obviously. And then cars loop back around, it sort of double backs. And again, that is it accomplishes two things. It allows for that further amount of staff, and then it gets the playground, that big rectangle right there, directly adjacent to the gym. They don't have to go across any roads.
Where's the new gym, Sean? Can you guys put this on aerial next month?
If it were, Jerry, for me.
Seriously, if you put it on aerial, I think we would all.
Yeah, to view it, for me, if it were flipped up this way, you could feel the back of the school because it sits up where the gym is. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, yes, we will put that on there.
Okay, so were you showing that's the new gym?
This is the new gym.
I got you.
Then the city's ball fields are here. The front entry piece is right here. And so the new media center classrooms are down here. This is Dolly Ridge.
Oh, where'd you go with your live?
Ceiling.
Yes.
And then this is New Merkle.
Gotcha.
So you come in the drive here, and then this would be where the new drive starts. And we come around here. This is currently that wooded area, and these are double stacked.
And do we own the wooded area that you're building on?
That's what we're working on. That's one of the pieces we're
Kimberly
working
will
on.
get it for us. You don't need a side of a mountain anyway, do you?
And that's essentially what it is.
Right.
And
that was actually a proposal. This is of the land swap when we thought we were going to widen the road, or the city was going to widen the road, that piece in the back.
currently, if you're the the property line of the school comes right through here. And it makes a little kind of pie shape. So it really restricts any kind of, you have this very circuitous serpentine road that really wouldn't do anything from a staff standpoint or from parking.
And where does the playground go again?
Playground.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
So
Right outside the gym.
kids can come right outside the gym and the playground.
And not cross.
And not cross the road, yeah, that's great.
Now, one thing, Brennan and Greg and I met with Brian Davis and Christopher Brady the other day, and one thing that I believe Brian brought up was could we look at an alternate location for the playground, perhaps in the back, which it works either way. I think there's plenty of space, so we've just kind of labeled it as an alternate area for the playground.
So it could be used like siblings at Park and Rec.
Correct. I think that was his idea. But currently, we're showing this area. If it moved to the back, this could perhaps become more parking for the gym. So.
Is the alternative area big enough for the enrollment over there?
This is a little bit small. We could get a little bit bigger here, but it's roughly the same size as your current playground square footage. It's shaped a little bit.
Is that big enough? I still don't have a sense. Is that big enough, the current playground?
The current one we have now?
Right.
Yeah. This would be much larger. This is where, when you go to Cobble Heights now, this is where the current road is now. It goes downhill directly adjacent to the school. So that would be abandoned right there. So you have more yard frontage and or parking that's required in this area. So then again, they loop back around, again, double stack, and come back to the same drop-off pickup area that they do now.
From a traffic count standpoint, with getting 200 cars up there, relieve kind of the general problems, obviously accepting the start of school craziness you always kind of have where people are figuring it out, but once the routine is established, will 200 get them off of Dolly Ridge?
I really think so, because if you look at it now, the current path comes down through here, or up through here, and right now, they circle through this little bitty driveway that is actually the job site. So you're gaining quite a bit of stack through here to again alleviate the concerns down here on the ridge. Now, this shows approximately 83 parking spaces, and how that is accomplished is diagonal parking along the road, diagonal parking here, and then a traditional lot sort of in between. So I think from Christopher Brady and Brian Davis's standpoint, they're thinking, parking, this is great. So I think their thought is, we're not using this land to this side anyway. If the school board wants to develop it, we're certainly okay with that. Certainly have to go to the city.
For the process, that's correct. The process is important, and maintaining the integrity of the process certainly is important to both entities, that's for sure.
Also, as part of this, and I know that Lisa is not able to be here tonight, but we would plan on new fencing and repaving this track that's around the butterfly garden. That's also something that is part of the project.
And it's been a concern for quite some time.
Yes.
Been addressed.
The butterfly garden has been a concern?
No, the track itself and students walking around it and the safety of, not the butterfly garden
I thought the butterflies
itself.
have been complaining.
No.
Give us time.
That's dangerous, that's right.
Well, their PTO has been trying to, thank you, Jerry.
David wanted to know, so.
I understand that. Thank you for asking on his behalf.
Well, and
They just flit around spreading rumors everywhere.
Alternative fact.
Next slide.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's just
Oh,
There's really no earthwork in this area. All of the earthwork would occur up here, but the plan is, and Brendan has already mapped it out, that we would have design, depending on what you guys want to do. We can have design ready and submitted March 16th to have this package occur over the summer of 17. And what that allows us to do is so say mid-March, we bid mid-April, and then it gives us from mid-April to the schools out, get contracts, get materials orders, start shop drawings, all of those pre-things. And we've also discussed the possibility of, again, with Jason and Alicia's and Officer Leos's help, we could potentially start clearing this, pending city approvals and all for this land before school is out. So those conversations as far as how this all occurs have taken place.
Brendan, I asked an obvious question, but your thoughts are that this is something we need to consider regardless of how we use Berry, what's going to happen with Vestavia Central. This is just a need that exists at Cahaba Heights.
Do you remember the emails at the start of school?
I do.
Just ask them.
Yes.
Next slide.
I think that, just for current count, this is obviously even more once, classrooms and those types of areas.
Right.
And the good thing about this project is, again, we've gotten approvals and everything on the media center classrooms, but they can occur opposite. They're not on top of each other.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So Sean said the goals for that to be a summer project and complete by the time school starts. So the earlier we can get started on doing anything related to this site, even if we can work it so that some of that's occurring while school's still going on in the sites where you're already doing construction up here at this end anyways, the better. We just got a lot of planning, bidding, work to be ready to go by that point. And one of those things is obtaining the city from the property if this is the route we choose to go. We've already started those conversations with meetings with the cities to look at their future plan for the parks and rec in this area, parking lots, and I think so far we're on the same page of what the ultimate end goal is for everyone.
Brendan, is that in that $11 million? It's on your summary slide?
Yes.
Okay.
That is included. That was one of the projects that was always planned and kind of thought to be a necessity at Cahaba Heights.
Okay.
The next project where construction is ongoing is at Vestavia Hills Elementary East. That is the new Cafeteria Kitchen. The project has broken ground. Construction started in November. Ongoing right now is talked about a parking lot, new parking area for teachers. Last month, we still have not paved that due to the sporadic rainfall that we've had and the heavy rains recently, but hoping for a dry spell where they can finish putting the binder coat down to pave that area. Footing work, excavation work is ongoing. They're trying to dig footings, pour footings for the building structure. That work's ongoing. Rain has slowed things down, but still progressing as normal. Just hoping for some dry weather on that front to get the building pads poured and start going vertical. That's essentially what's going on the last month at East. Some pictures of the site work. You see the parking lot bottom right. Still waiting to pave that. Footing work going on. You can see rebar being tied here against the existing building. It's being poured, and just general site excavation for footings and site utilities is kind of the progress at this point for the east site. At the high school, the turf replacement project achieved substantial completion last week. So that project is now complete, pending some just minor punch list work to finish up that project. They do have the fencing remaining that was always going to be the last thing that was done once they got out of the field area. That'll be done this week. So practice starts next Monday, so everything's looking good for practice to start. They're already on the field throwing around as they're allowed to do pre-practice right now, but full-on practice starts Monday. So this project is complete, just punch list to complete, finish installation of the fencing, and then there was a side project of some new batting cages over in the area that I think Jamie was doing on his own that'll be complete as well. So the baseball is essentially done at this point, like we hoped for. Here are some pictures of the turf. If you remember last month, you had 4 pictures of stone. This looks a little better. So this is the completed field. If you haven't been by to see it, I think you should. Looks good.
Gorgeous.
All right, to West. As we've mentioned before in previous meetings and updates, the West project was bid for a new kitchen cafeteria. It was discovered that the land, quarter acre, could not be used for its intended use. So we started a process prior to entering a contract with the low bidder that their bid looked good, but we just had to put the brakes on and say we need to get this land usable. So that process was working with the city to acquire this section of land and working with the state and ADECA to get this land restriction use lifted. Part of that process was working through the city and soliciting some of their help to help us with the ADECA request to lift that plot. So at this point, there's still no end in sight for the ADECA land use lift. We've both received word and the city's received word. We thought it was going to be early spring when that could be accomplished. They're now saying it could be into summer or fall of next year. So it's unknown right now, and nobody knows, including the city, of when that process is going to be complete. Still working on the city for them to convey that quarter acre to the school board for use, that for any purpose that you needed that quarter acre for. That could be outdoor recreational use, which that land currently you could build on just outdoor recreational use, or if you could design on your existing site a building that could fit within those parameters. We're looking at all those options. So as a part of this process, the bid was in early October, so it's now been 3 months since that process, and we got a bid price extension from the low bidder. They were to hold their bid price for 30 days. We got an extension of 30 days, but at this point we feel that they can't hold their bid price number for any longer because it could be spring, a couple more months, or even later until we could move forward with that project as it was designed. So at this point, with that in mind, with the enrollment projection still pending to see what is the enrollment projection going to be at West, is this design still the best use for that campus, or could we reconfigure things? All that being considered, we think it's best at this time to reject the bids for this particular project, with in mind the land issues that haven't been overcome yet that we're still working through, and that enrollment projection pending. So that would be just a formal rejection of the bid pricing for this project to either be rebid at a later date once we do acquire the land and see the enrollment projection numbers, or to consider all our options on the West campus.
But
Which includes a redesign, possibly.
Correct, once we have the demographic information. That's the holdout right now for a possible redesign and what we may be able to do even beyond the land issue to get this moving. because this is the one project that we've had a difficult time getting feet to and get moving, and it is something certainly that remains a priority, but it has these shifting parts that we're not actually in control of. So how are we going to manage it and move it along as quickly as we can?
Yeah,
It's possible, but with the demographic, not having that yet to ensure we're building the best design, that's the issue.
In trying to still move forward with the West plan and the West kind of long-term goal to improve these facilities, we are looking at other options for this new kitchen cafeteria to make it fit in the current boundaries as they are and not get onto that quarter acre we've talked about. We're looking at possibilities for classroom additions onto the existing building for growth, and also working and still trying to aim towards a media center special needs renovation project for this summer that we believe is still a necessity at West, regardless of, like we said, enrollment projections, is to revive that area. So still working through design and progress while still waiting on the enrollment projections and working through this land issue.
Rick or Sean, anything else you'd say about that?
In reference to the classroom additions, that has already been sent to the state and sent prior to the start of the year. What's important about that, and also the additions at Hobbies Heights, is it avoids a storm shelter requirement that the new code requires. So both of those projects are designed so that they're regular classroom use. And we're still keeping in mind, especially at West, that classroom addition would not interfere with where we plan on putting the cafeteria, even if we redesign it. So all of those parameters, while it seems they're moving around, the target is still sort of the same.
And Jerry, I think you asked back in October, could it be shifted? And that we've looked at shifting the building, redesigning a portion of it, and it will fit within those boundaries if we have to. So that design will.
Well, the domino that needs to fall is the demographic information first.
To affirm what we're doing.
Kimberly, yes ma'am.
I just had a question about whether the community spaces plan might impact the design of West. Do you foresee that that's going to have any impact at all?
Not from the conversations that we have had. I think and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the conversations that we've had, I'm assuming you're talking about the Wall Park planning and all of that as well, being very careful in those conversations to protect that boundary a bit. Now, are there some possible changes such as to the parking on the upper side, the back side, the front side that's the back side of West as far as all of that is concerned? That's certainly a possibility, but and you all, again, correct me if I'm wrong, the interference between the two of what might happen, I don't think is necessarily there. Somebody articulate that better than I can.
Since we've been involved, one of the first actions we took, knowing that the community spaces plan was coming potentially down the road, was to actively engage with the core team that was working with the city and with the Parks and Rec department to start the discussions early as we were evaluating what was potentially being planned at West, having regular discussions so that we are not doing things that counterproduct, that are contradictory to each other. So we may not be visibly present with Jerry and some of the meetings, but we are having regular conversation and discussion with the rest of those departments.
And Kimberly, as you know, I've been involved in that for a year or so. A couple of things: parking, it might impact, and then the stacking, depending on what the city decides, could definitely benefit that school and all the folks in carpool line, and then that small playground also could potentially be positively impacted. But in terms of the building, I don't think there's an issue.
Okay. At Barry, still assessing the current facility you have, just keeping in mind that that enrollment projection is needed to develop an ultimate plan at Berry, but still looking at this campus and this facility to look at what's in need, what would you probably design or revive or renovate on the interior of the building, regardless of how you oriented classrooms. So still assessing that facility from that standpoint and doing what we can at the Berry campus to continue to move forward with thinking through potential designs and situations there. But that enrollment projection, like I said, is that ultimate piece that once it falls, we'll be able to really move forward and get aggressive with what we're going to do school system wide. I know one of the topics that continues to be discussed is a potential high school at Liberty Park. We shared this with you last month as well as the previous month, and that is this slide just kind of outlining what it would look like to build a high school at Liberty Park. An estimate of that for a 1,000 student school at about 210,000 square feet would be approximately $50 million in building costs. You would have an additional $10 million in athletics depending on how elaborate your design was, what all you were going to include from an athletic standpoint. That does not include a land acquisition cost, so that is a variable for how much it would cost to acquire land of that size and usable land to build in that area. So I think Matt Adams is here to kind of talk about, from a funding standpoint, what that would look like to be able to fund building of a new high school. I'll turn it over to Greg.
About what the other costs associated with it would be. We are looking at approximately $70 million for building athletic facilities, furnishings, where we need to get it up and going. And as Brennan said, that does not include the land, which could be a huge cost. Going through and looking at it, about a 1,000-student high school would cost approximately $8 million a year to operate, just for personnel, overall overhead costs, electricity, power, various utilities, different things that would go into it. The other part that figures into it is it's $70 million. We do not have $70 million to pay for a structure like that right now. So we have to figure in a debt service cost. Where we just did a bond issue for $69.6 million. Average annual debt service on that equates to approximately $4 million a year for 30 years. So you're looking at somewhere around $12 million a year in cost to go through and fund and operate that school. Matt's going to go over something too. I'm a little light in the $4 million debt service because since we did our bond issue, the bond market has gone crazy. We got in at a very good time. Rates are much higher. So it's even going to be higher than what I anticipated or projected with these numbers. So just having said that, giving you a general overview of rough estimates of what the operating costs would be, I'm going to turn it over to Matt to go through some additional information about funding for something like that.
To use the terminology, y'all's new middle school schedule, I don't normally get the Lancer Pirate periods to speak, so I think everybody wants to move numbers into first period, so I'll try and make this real quick. I apologize for not having an electronic version, but if anybody needs a copy of this, just let me know. On page 2, just to give you a little bit of an overview, as Greg said, of what rates have done since we issued debt last year. We issued our bond issue on the 20th of September, and rates are up almost 0.75% since then. We knew at the time we were trying to get ahead of the election. We were trying to get ahead of the Fed rate decision. We didn't know that they were going to be up 0.75%, but we knew that there might be some volatility towards the end of the year. So with that being said,
So we got in at
a very good time. The other thing that's happened since we issued, Moody's has put 300 credits across the nation on review. They've changed a little bit of their methodology. It's really not much that you've done, but they've changed their methodology, and Greg may have mentioned this to you. In the state of Alabama, of those 300, there were 4 on review. 2 were on review for upgrade, 2 were on review for downgrade, meaning a lower rating or higher rating. The city of Vestavia and Vestavia Hills Board of Education were the 2 that were on review for an upgrade. So that's really good news. I mean, you will be at the highest rating level after that occurs, and we expect that to occur in the next 60 days or so. So just as a refresher on page 3, if you don't have the funds, which Greg's talking about, there are essentially 2 ways for a Board of Ed to borrow. And that's either with the backing of a sales tax or the backing of an ad valorem or property tax. A sales tax can be passed by, and let me be real clear, nobody has considered any increased taxes that I'm aware of. So I just want to make that point. I don't want to single out any council members or any Board of Education members. Nobody has talked about in a back room or anything else about tax increases. This is just an overview. A sales tax can be passed with a vote of the city council. An ad valorem tax or property tax is a little bit more complicated. It usually requires a public hearing, some legislative action in Montgomery, and then a referendum. And assuming all that passes, then you can levy additional millage. So those are kind of the 2 avenues that you could travel if you needed additional tax revenues for a potential Liberty Park borrowing. On page 4, I give you an overview of our local revenues. So currently, the city levies about just over 52 mills for education of property tax, and the Board of Education receives 1/12 of 30% of 3 cents. So if that's clear, I hope that's clear. Just to give you give everybody who doesn't have the numbers in front of them, that sales tax accounts for about $300,000. The vast majority of the board's revenues are ad valorem revenues. So the 52 mills are 32.6, basically 32.6 million. So primarily, you guys are funded from property taxes on a local basis. So on page 5, we have just kind of used the numbers that Greg has come up with, $8 million for operating and $4 million for new debt service to cover the $70 million. And we've kind of looked at your existing taxes to see if there's room. The problem with that is we're already spending that money somewhere on instruction, on any number of things. And so if we were to take that out of one pot and put it towards debt service, we're short somewhere. So there's really no good approach to taking money that's already been spent on instruction. On page 6, we'll just give you a little bit of an overview on ad valorem taxes. There are 2 types of ad valorem taxes. One are county-wide levied, the other district-wide levied. So basically, a levy just in the city or a levy countywide in Jefferson County. I won't go into a ton of detail there. Really what I want to hit on is on page 7. And this is essentially, if we had to fund $12 million out of either property or sales tax, what does that equate to in terms of an increase? And so for ad valorem taxes with absolutely, no margin for error, no coverage. And if you'll remember, coverage is if I owe David $1 and I've got $2 in my pocket, I can pay that debt twice. And usually for any tax, you want a little bit of cushion there or coverage there. because taxes are going to fluctuate. You're going to run through a 2008, 2009 period where property values are going to fall off, and so you need some padding there. You're going to run through a period where sales taxes are not as high. It's just the nature of economic cycles. And so with absolutely no coverage on a property tax basis, you're talking about 19 mils to fund to fully fund $12 million. If you wanted like a 1.2 times coverage ratio, you're talking about almost 23 mils of property tax. And just to put that in perspective, a 20 mil property tax increase is about $600 annually on a $300,000 house. So that puts it a little bit in clearer terms. So that's the bad news of the cost of a Liberty Park High School. If we were to travel the sales tax route with no coverage, and I don't really even think this is feasible, but you would be talking about a 4-cent increase solely for the $12 million to cover the $12 million. And that's using an approximate value of 1 penny of sales tax collections. So that's a very high level, 30,000 foot overview. And I realize it's late, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Expensive, huh?
It is expensive.
So I want to say, and I should have said this at the beginning, when we first started having this discussion of a potential Liberty Park High School, I asked these two to go back and figure out what it would take. Again, it's not a discussion we've had with the city. It's not a discussion that we've had outside of just trying to get a feel for what it would take. And so clearly, either of these individually is probably not the best way to get it done. And I'm not sure that even, a little bit of each is the way to get it done. I'm really not certain at all. But I wanted the public and everyone involved to understand that Liberty Park High School, I live there. I would love to have a Liberty Park High School. But I think this $70 million is something that we can't fund. I know we can't fund it right now. Correct, Dr. No? There you go.
I certainly can.
Right. So I want the public to understand that there's some pain involved in getting there, and we need to collectively figure out how to get there if the Liberty Park High School is something that the community wants. I know it's something that we would like to have, but we would like to have a lot of things. And so can we get this out, an electronic copy of this, and put it on the website tomorrow?
Is there a page 8 that includes if we sell the naming rights to Jerry?
And that would get us to 72 million.
Okay, there you go.
That we need. I go in the wrong direction. Anyway, I appreciate you guys putting some time to figure it out.
Yeah, this is very thoughtful, Matt. Thank you.
Again, nobody has considered this as a realistic option. It's just to try and quantify what if. So,
sure. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
And Mr. Madden. Thank you.
Thank you both. Anything else?
That's
Any
it
other-
from construction facilities planning on it.
Anything else that you all, I hope that it's quite clear that we have been moving forward, that a lot of work has been done on our behalf in trying to figure this out in the most methodical way that we can and as thoroughly as possible. I will reiterate that this presentation we just had has nothing to do with any type of recommendation or any thought thereof other than just a training exercise in making sure that we have looked at all options that may be there. We have had conversation, and it's why I think, Jerry, you brought it up, that it's very important that as the demographers finish up their work that we make sure that we understand how they verify the data that they're using. In conversation that I have had, Jerry sat down with me and we talked with Sean Otterburn just about, okay, where are you now? The last time we talked was about 2 years ago about the growth and development that may happen with no detail, just are we all on the same page? Are we having conversation, which is important with all entities, Park and Rec, with the city, with Liberty Park Venture, you name it, and we have been doing that work. I have had further discussion with, along the lines back to an academic approach to some of the decisions that we have to make as far as the academies are concerned, talking with the fine arts department, talking with athletics. Those kinds of conversations are still ongoing, and we have miles still to go and work still to do, and we never claimed that this would be a quick process. We just want to make sure we get it as right as we possibly can. So I think we're still moving the ball, as you would put it, and making great strides. Any other questions or?
Any
We should do this on the same night as the board.
Next slide.
Thank you, Roger.
Any questions from folks? Okay. Thank you all for your patience being here so long this evening. Thank you.